Welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations, your authority in navigating the world of homeschooling diverse learners. Featuring Peggy Ployhar from SPED Homeschool, Annie Yorty from AnnieYorty.com, Leilani Melendez from Living with Eve, Stephanie Buckwalter from eLARP Learning, and Dawn Jackson from Dawn Jackson Educational Consulting and Tutoring. With over 75 years of combined homeschooling expertise, experiences, and perspectives, this group is eager to share their wealth of wisdom to empower your homeschooling journey. So grab your favorite mug, settle in, and get ready for insightful discussions, valuable insights, and practical tips. Give your homeschool the power boost it needs to successfully educate the unique learners in your home.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Today, we are going to talk about homeschooling with what you know, meeting unique needs in an uncertain journey. And my guest today is Christine Zell. Christine is a homeschool mom of 4, wife to her high school sweetheart, and creator of Rabbit Trails Homeschool curriculum. You can often find her with her nose in a book and a coffee in her hand. Christine has embraced the relaxed atmosphere that has developed as she has learned to let go of the small things, enjoy her children, and help them create a love of learning. She enjoys encouraging other families in their homeschooling journeys, both through her curriculum and her homeschooling community. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I just love what you're about and love that you're just taking one day at a time. And it's your life is a message that we all need to hear. And that's a lot what Christine's going to share in this next hour is just the process of learning as she goes about her kids, how to homeschool them. And so hang on if you're just popping on to the recording, or if you're joining us live, just know if you are with us live, watching on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, that you can put comments, questions in that feed, and we will see them. And we'd love to be able to encourage you and help you with anything that you may have questions about as well. So yeah, that'll kind of get us kicked off here. But since Christine's going to talk a lot about her story, and I know I usually ask a lot of our viewers, the first question is just about, why they're passionate about this topic. But I'm going to have Christine talk about something else to get us started, just so that we can understand her journey. And so I would love to know, Christine, when you first began homeschooling, what vision do you did you have for teaching your children? Was there a specific approach you envisioned, or did you kind of feel like, I have no idea, I'm just going to try this out? Some people go month by month.
Yeah, for sure. So I had no idea. We had decided when my oldest was about preschool age that homeschooling was what we wanted to do.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so we jumped in with kindergarten, and we lived in California at the time. My husband was a Marine for 20 years. So we lived all over the country. And so they had charter schools there where you could homeschool 5 days a week even, but they would provide the curriculum, or you could do like a hybrid type model where you could go 2 days and spend 3 days at home or whatever. So we did the 5 days at home where they provided curriculum, because I was so overwhelmed trying to decide. And it's funny because there's so much more out there even now than there was 11, 12 years ago. So they provided it. Very quickly learned that half the stuff they provided did not work for us, but I feel like that's pretty typical.
It is, yes.
So because we were trying to be very traditional. I was public schooled. My husband was public schooled. Everyone we knew was public schooled just about.
Yeah.
So I was trying to replicate that. And so obviously that didn't work too great at first. And so, I would trade things in and get different things. And then we did learn about different curriculum that was very homeschool modeled and not so much public school modeled.
Yeah.
And so we slowly started, bringing our own things in there until finally, like a year and a half later, we ditched it altogether and did like our own thing and not what they were providing for us. So yeah, I mean, it took me a couple of years to really get rid of that traditional method and to start
Mm,
learning about unit studies and learning about just even relaxed homeschooling and even unschooling, not unhomeschooling,
right.
unschooling, and all the different things that are out there, and just
Mm,
really trying to find what worked for us in our own homeschool. Because even when you talk to your best friend or your neighbor or whatever, what they're doing
right.
may not be what works exactly for you. So just kind of
Very good
finding
advice. Yes.
our own jive and figuring
Hmm.
out how to move away from that traditional approach and finding what works for us. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's such good experience for to share with others, because I think we often think I've got to have all my ducks in a row before I start, and this is what I'm going to do the entire span of my homeschooling career. That doesn't It's not always the case. You start somewhere. You just got to start. And then it morphs and it changes as you go. And
yeah,
but
so much. And I always joke when people ask me about math, and I'm like, I think we've tried like 12 math curriculum. Like, don't ask me when it comes to math, because it's
you have a
like we're
lot of
still
experience though.
changing. Yes, and I can say what I like and don't like and all of that. So that is good experience for sure. But I think
Yeah.
even next year for my middle schooler, I think we're changing to a different curriculum already, and I'm already looking at that for next year. And so, you have to keep changing and evolving as they grow up.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. And I think that is the overarching theme of our discussion today is you do have to evolve, you do have to change, because in the long run, you're going to discover things that are going to require that change. So I know in your story that you've been uncovering some puzzle pieces about your kids and some unique learning needs that they have. Um, how did that start? Like, where did you start observing things, and what started making you question, should I change things? What's going on? All of those questions that a lot of us have, and we don't quite know exactly if it's a cue or a clue, or if maybe we're just, I know with myself, I always put the blame on me. I
mhm.
never really thought about, oh, maybe it was just the child until, somebody else pointed something out. So what is your story with that?
Yeah, so my my oldest is very average with his learning. Um and so, but even still, like, I think even with your very typical child, you still have struggles. And
Yeah.
so even with him, we were trying to follow different curriculum, but we'd be getting library books, and we lived close to a Barnes and Noble which had a
Mhm.
Starbucks, and that was like our treat to go and get like the little $4 readers from Barnes and Noble and
Uh-huh.
go get a coffee and get him a cookie or whatever. Um, because it was like right by our grocery shopping. And so
Mm.
that was like, we've had a great week. Let's go and get these readers.
Yeah.
But then they'd always get pushed to the side because our curriculum dictated that we had to read this. And finally,
Right.
one day, I was just like, we're not enjoying any of these beautiful books that we're getting from the library. We're not enjoying any of these cool readers we picked up because your
Yeah.
curriculum's saying no, it's saying to do this other thing. And
Hmm.
I'm sick of it, like I just
Yeah.
want these beautiful books to lead the way. And so that
Oh.
was kind of step number one for us, was going, we can push this to the side and we can
Hmm.
stop doing this and we can let these books lead the way. Um,
Right.
and then with my second, I noticed probably by like 18 months that something wasn't quite right. And it
Hmm.
just took many, 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 many years to finally figure out what was going on with his little
Hmm.
ADHD brain, and to figure out that even though he wasn't presenting in a typical way, that's
Yeah.
absolutely what's going on with him. And it's been like,
Hmm.
and this was a recent diagnosis, and he's 12. So it's
Wow.
been, you know, 10 and a half, 11 years of going,
Right.
something's going on, what's going on? And again, putting that
Right.
blame on myself. Maybe I'm not parenting him right. Maybe it's my fault. Excuse me. And what am I doing wrong? Why is he throwing these tantrums? Because it
Right.
finally hit me at like 6 or 7 these tantrums are no longer age appropriate. Like when he's,
Oh, yeah.
18 months, 2,
Mhm.
3 years old, you're like, oh, well, he's just throwing tantrums. He's
Yeah,
just being a
exactly.
normal toddler. And so, yeah, so it struck me one of those days where he was 6 or 7, where I was like, this isn't normal for this age to be acting like this anymore. But since we did move so much, it was really difficult to get in somewhere, because it was like
Mm.
as soon as we had an appointment, it was time to move. And then, the adjustment period, I think it would always take us like a year to get into a new regular doctor, just
Right. Yeah.
after getting things
Mhm.
adjusted. And so it finally took my husband retiring and us settling in one spot for me to go, okay, I can't wait any longer. Like we need
Right.
to,
Yeah.
get this figured out, especially as puberty's coming and all the changes that come with that, that I was just like, I need
Right.
answers before things completely explode. Um,
Right.
so, but kind of the same thing with him was, you know, I wanted different pieces of different curriculum, specifically for language arts.
Hmm.
But how can I use all these different pieces from these different curriculums? Like they don't fit together because the literature
Yeah.
based worked, but then I needed hands on. But then I also enjoyed
Hmm.
the copy work. But then I also, and
Right.
there
Yep.
wasn't one
Mhm.
thing that fit that. And so it was just how can I make this learning, because he thrives learning this way, how can
Hmm.
I move forward and help him learn in the way that he thrives in. um, and so yeah, so
Right.
then it kind of worked with both of my older ones to kind of, okay, let's get those real books, let's get all these different pieces so that we
Yeah.
can move forward and learn in a way that we're enjoying too. Because I hated that grumbling and I don't want to do school, so just finding
Absolutely.
finding something that we loved.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a lot of give and take, and yeah, I hope that as you're listening or watching, that you realized, that you had inclinations like at 18 months, but what you said is you didn't get the official diagnosis till 12. And I think we kind of panic when we don't foresee or see things or get the answers we need immediately. Um, but the timing for that will end up being perfect.
Hmm.
You acted on what you had. It may not have been the full diagnosis, it may not have been anything, but I as I heard you talking, you're like, I knew that this clicked with him, so I changed to this, or just the eclectic part of your homeschooling approach based on that. We have a little
we,
guest.
we have a guest.
So, um, so yeah, that's really important. And just taking those small steps, trying things out. I think we kind of get scared a little bit when
Mhm.
we think, oh, I've got to switch my entire approach, and just saying, instead of just taking those little pieces of, oh, this works, so I'm just going to stick that in there, amongst all the other things that are working or sort of working, and we'll figure out how to make it we're all work together. So, what were those first steps that you took? I think it'd be helpful for our community to know, just as you were starting to see some of these needs, how did you start that adjustment period?
um I think the biggest thing was that I finally gave myself permission
Mm,
to ditch things.
wow.
Because some things were easier to ditch than others. Like for me, I just don't like, oh, are you showing off? I just don't like math. And so ditching math curriculum and doing something different was easy for me because it's not
Right.
something that I love.
Hmm.
Where I'm more passionate about history and language arts. And so those were harder ones, especially again, coming from public school. I had in my brain, like, you have to have a workbook for language arts or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we need these worksheets that explain nouns and verbs, or it's not good enough. And so
Right.
just giving myself that permission to ditch the workbooks, and that you don't need that proof of written work in order to
Hmm.
have proof that your child is learning. has been just so huge. And even a couple weeks ago, my daughter, she's 7, and we have been going through literature-based language arts. And I was just thinking, like, oh man, like, when was the last time we reviewed a noun or a verb? Maybe I do need to find her something. And then I had to remind myself, like, no, we just reviewed this going over these books like last week. Like, just because it's not on paper doesn't mean that she's not learning all of, like, she's able to verbally tell me what all of these things are. I don't need her to write down on a pretty worksheet that this castle is a place, you know?
Right.
And so, so really just giving myself permission was the biggest thing. And I think the biggest hurdle that most families go through.
Yeah, absolutely.
You bought this, you spent money on this, you spent time organizing this, you have to use it. We're really, and I always tell people that are like, you know, this thing's not working. I'm like, contact their curriculum company, because half of them have really great return policies, you know? And so contact them, especially if it is a physical book. A lot of them will, even if it's halfway through the school year and you're just like, this isn't working, see what the return policy is. So you can get that money back, even if it's a partial refund, to put towards that next curriculum. That way you're able to do, you know, what your kiddo's leading you to need to do. So
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It's curriculum should not be your master, you know, but yet people who design curriculum, you know, like yourself, you think out that process, the learning that is going to happen. And it's good to have that, because for people like me who have no background in teaching, I relied on curriculum providers to give me a scope and sequence, because I wasn't coming up with that on my own. So I liked that framework to be able to rely on, but sometimes you do need to tweak and change, and yes, if you're not too much into it and you can return it, that's great. Otherwise, contact the curriculum company about, do you have supplementary things, or what have you seen other people who have had these struggles use in conjunction with your curriculum? So there's lots of different options that you have that I think we forget to ask, like you were suggesting. And we just need to make those contacts and go out and say, this is a need I have. And a lot of curriculum companies don't even realize that there are ways that they can help you be successful until you let them know that this is
and I
sort of
love
working, but not working.
Yeah, I love when people contact me and ask me questions, because we aren't a traditional curriculum. So we don't have a pretty scope and sequence laid out, because it is such a curriculum that you can very easily tweak. And it's written that way as someone with an ADHD brain for a child who has ADHD, that I don't like, even though scope and sequence, especially in math, I keep going back to math. It's very, like, I need it in math. I need to see, yes, this is what we're doing each day. But in something like language arts or history, are you moving your hands too? Something in like language arts and history, especially coming from a literature-based approach, yes, it lays out what books you're going to read and what topics you're going to go over, but you have the freedom to explore those topics. And that's what's really important to me, because then I'm able to sit down and say, what's important to me that we're taking out of this? And that's what we're going to focus on. And so just having something that's giving you that amount of freedom to see what your kids are interested in. If you're going over Revolutionary War time period, my favorite's Paul Revere. I want to spend weeks on him. I want to go to Boston and go back to his house. Like, I want to make this, I want to learn and read all of the books about Paul Revere, but I may not care as much about Thomas Jefferson or something. And so we're not going to go to Montpelier, and we're, the different things. And so if that's how it is for your kids, that they're super interested in one thing, but not another, that you have that freedom to do that inside of the curriculum without it dictating to you on day 14, you must do this page and you must read this.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. You lose that spontaneity. You lose their natural curiosities that come up because you all of a sudden turn, nope, the lesson plan doesn't say this. And then, you go on to something else and you may even return to that topic, but their curiosity is gone at that point because they've gone on to other things. So yes, I love that your curriculum is called Rabbit Trails because that's basically what that is.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, that's great. As you started making these changes and you were making changes based on some of your kids' preferences or abilities to learn, how did that affect the overall learning in your home? Did, with the other students that you may not have seen particular maybe possible diagnoses with, but it's always interesting when you've got a mix of kids and you're teaching everybody all in one room most of the time. How does that work? So I'd love to hear your story about that.
Yeah. So I think that's what makes Rabbit Trails so beautiful is that, so I didn't realize I was making it for my children, right? Like that was my goal was I'm writing something for my own home, but I'm going to share it with people because if I'm putting all this effort in, it makes sense to share it. I also didn't expect to go past language arts. And now we have much more than language arts, which is just
that's awesome.
All of it's God. Like even the name came to me at 2 a.m. because I was like, I don't know what to call this thing. And literally like sat up in bed at 2 a.m. going Rabbit Trails Through Literature. Like, holy cow, that's such a good name. So it wasn't even me really titling it. It was absolutely like divine providence. Like, here's this beautiful name. But it wasn't written for a special needs child. It was just simply written for both of my older kids because my youngest wasn't old enough to do at the time my youngest because this guy was not there yet. I actually launched it while he was in my belly, super duper pregnant with him. So didn't expect that to happen either. Excuse me. Yeah, that was like really terrible timing, but of course, perfect timing all at the same time. But yeah, so it actually works really beautifully for typical children. And I've even had families with gifted children and obviously families like myself that have children with a mix of different diagnoses. And even at the special needs homeschool conference or expo that we went to this past summer, it was really great to talk to families there. Because I wasn't even I didn't have a booth. I wasn't exhibiting. I just did a few small sessions. But it was really cool because one of them was just letting people ask me questions about the curriculum. Because I was like, I don't have to prepare anything for this. People can just ask me and I can just talk. And great. Because I was trying to keep it as, low as little work on me as possible to get back into the conference circuit. Because I was trying to take a break very unsuccessfully, but I was trying. And so it was really beautiful. People asking me these questions who had nonverbal children and who had children on the autism spectrum and just all these different, alphabet soups, if you will, and children all over the place. And I was able to very easily answer their questions of how it could work for them because of the fact that literature-based curriculum is just so adaptable. Because if your child isn't verbal, that doesn't mean that they don't hear you reading these stories and telling you about these lessons. They don't have to write down the copy work in order to be successful. If they enjoy the crafty parts of it and that's all that they're doing, especially my little ones, before they're old enough to do the full lessons with us, they're joining in on the crafty stuff and they may not do it to the, where it needs to be, but they're able to join in with their siblings while they're actually getting stuff out of it. All of our history has an art study with every lesson. And so he's able to sit there with the crayons or colored pencils or paint or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
he's not making what the other ones are doing, but he sees them with the tablet with whatever picture pulled up.
Yeah.
And he still, he still is seeing the color and seeing what's going on and being excited about being a part of it and listening to the stories that he does not grasp whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them he does, like some of the other like language art stuff. But right now we're doing
Right.
World War II, which is a little heavy for little ones. So he doesn't know what we're talking about in
Right.
World War II,
Yeah.
but he's enjoying the fact that we're reading a book together and that we're doing this art
Yes.
study. And he's sitting there as his siblings are doing copy work. And so it really, and it can be for lots of different literature-based curriculum
Mm-hmm.
that, you can just adapt it so easily for your family. Yes, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
It's,
that's beautiful.
yeah, you just don't even know how much they're absorbing because
Right.
it's amazing because we taught the same way with unit studies and did a lot of like book reading as a family. And it was amazing what those little kids, my younger ones remembered.
Yes.
And we had some foster kids too they all had learning challenges and they would still pick up on some of the things that I was like, I thought that was above their head and yet they still got it. So,
Right.
So that's good to be reminded of because I think we often will choose a curriculum where we think our child will be, and sometimes mentally they're beyond what they can respond with, and they do need to be challenged. They need to go beyond the 1, 2, 3s and ABCs. And I know Stephanie Buckwalter, one of my co-hosts, talks about that a lot. Because she's like, her daughter just started getting really frustrated because she was understanding things beyond the scope of what she was able to let she was understanding. And so many of our kids do. We have to assume intelligence and continue to feed them good things. And so I love that, you really, that is your approach. And yes, no matter what, everybody can learn together so many things and share in those activities. So that,
yeah, for sure.
that's awesome.
And it's such a time saver. As a mom. Oh no, I hope I didn't just turn my sound off. Am I good? Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, good. It beeped in my ear. So I was like, oh no, I hope I didn't do anything. When I'm watching like Netflix or whatever, it pauses the show when I do that. So I was like, I don't know what I'll do. Anyway. But yeah, like just the fact that I am able to teach them together. It's a time saver as a mom, which is huge for me because when I had my second start homeschooling in like kindergarten, that was a struggle I had too, was how am I supposed to do 2 language arts and 2 histories and 2 science? Because all of my kids are very spread out. There's a 4-year difference, a 5-year difference, and then a 3-year difference between my last 2. So they'll be a little bit easier as he gets bigger. But I'm also not sure if his cognitive abilities will be enough to make it a true 3-year age gap. I think it'll be more of a 4 or 5-year cognitive age gap.
Right.
So they are on very different levels because when you're talking 4 to 5-year age gaps, you wouldn't think that you can teach out of the same curriculum where for most of our subjects we do, and we're able to still tailor it and have that time saving. And so it's so much more enjoyable as a mom to be able to sit down with multiple kids and say, we're doing this together and we're learning this together. So
yeah, it does. It saves so much time, and I greatly appreciated having to being able to get so many things done as a group and, focus on the things that they really needed to do individually, like math, or specific, language arts where they were learning to read at least.
Right.
But, after that, you can really do everything together. And, and it teaches them how to work together. It teaches them how to understand each other's differences, different perspectives. I mean, when you have discussions about the things, one child is going to pick up something totally different than another child. And so when you're talking about it, they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or, that's how we learn, is within community, and
Right.
instead of isolated and siloed. As most curriculums are written to kind of silo your thinking. Yeah. So I
Right.
love that. Yeah, absolutely. So, as you started creating resources yourself, was there anything that that inspired you, even beyond, as you continue to go, what continues to inspire, what you're going to study next? I think sometimes we feel at a loss. Well, I've got to find this curriculum, and there are rabbit trails that take us. How do you kind of follow that? That's, don't want to say it a plan. It's kind of that method of thinking, it's just like, I can release this, I can just go with this. And then how do I go about, like, making this educational?
Yeah. So with language arts, we've really started focusing on novel studies for both elementary and like upper elementary, middle school as well. Because I had only planned on doing language arts and only a couple of volumes of it. And like, that's all I expected Rabbit Trails to ever be. So we now have 5 volumes of language arts plus a preschool and kindergarten. And I am like, that is it as far as the actual volumes go. But with novel studies, I'm like, we can literally write until we die and not cover all the books. Like, there are so many novels out there. And so we will continue to crank those out. And so now it is kind of like, well, what are my favorite ones? And we've asked multiple times to our followers, what do you want to see? And so we probably have a list of like 10 books already. That's going to take us forever to finally get all of those done. But really focusing on finding those great novels that families typically read anyway in their homeschool.
Right.
And so, being able to add to that so that natural learning can happen. Because again, when we're learning about nouns and verbs or whatever it is, like, it can just happen so naturally. So if we can throw that into a novel study so that while they're already reading Little House in the Big Woods, let's add this extra element to it so that they're not having to do this plus this other workbook or whatever it is on top of it. For history, I've been kind of just following my own timeline.
That's good.
We are almost, we are almost done, sort of, writing our history because I wanted to get through American history. I'm talking to someone, baby, okay? But if you want milk, you need to go ask Caleb for milk, okay? He really wants milk. So we're almost done with American history. And we also have a few other topics as well. And that was my plan, was to get through these several topics. And so that's been easy because history is, what we typically covering the topics that we typically cover in history. And so that did kind of make that easy of just, okay, well, what important parts of this history do we want to cover?
Right.
And so we're almost done with modern American history, and I'm really excited about it. And then science, there's so much to learn in science. And so much of that has just been led by my children's interests. We even did a reptiles and amphibian unit because my 12-year-old loves reptiles and wants to be a herpetologist. And so that was one of our first science, like nature studies that we did, because I just wanted to focus on what is he enjoying? What does he like? And so most of our science units have been because either myself or one of my writers, if that's what their kids want to learn. And so I'm like, then write it. Like, let's go for it. Let's put it out. Because again, like, it only makes sense. If we want this for our family, other people are going to want it too. But that has been like just being able to help my family and my few ladies that I have work with me, having them be able to help their families, like that is our main priority. And that's really what does keep us going. And just knowing that if it's blessing us, like we love to just see that blessing keep on going, and to have those other families just be able to fall in love with learning the way that we've been able to. But yeah, the ladies that work with me definitely help keep me going during those hard times when business has to be business and not just fun writing and learning and all of that. They're wonderful. So they also help keep everything going when I'm having to deal with like the business, not fun side of things. So,
yeah, there is all of that. Well, if you want to take a break and get him something to drink, I can fill that time with some talk about SPED homeschool.
Okay.
And then I'll pop you back on the screen when you come back.
Okay. I was hoping, I had texted my 12-year-old. I'm like, he really wants milk, and he did not come up. So I'll hopefully.
All right. So we'll see you in a second.
1 minute.
And yes, we'll continue the conversation then. Okay. So I'm going to give Christine a little break. That just happens. We're homeschool moms. We have kids. I remember the days when my kids were the same way. So I would love to share with a lot of you that are watching just a little bit about SPED homeschool. We've got some amazing things coming up. And so want to make sure that I let you know about if you haven't visited our new website, over the summer, we launched Homeschool Heroes, and that website is completely different than the way that our other one was. So on our homepage, you can find a lot of information, but also up in these little toggle down menus, you can find everything from our groups. If you have a membership, you can access the member directory. You can see what our members are saying as far as stories. We have some challenges, actually a current challenge we have right now. I'll click on to that because our current challenge is if you create an account, and it can be free, and put your profile in as well as a picture, then you can get a free 2-month membership. So we'll send that to you as soon as you create your profile and update that. So go on to there and do that. That's something we have going through this next month. So we would love for you to join our community. But we have lots of resources. If you go under any of these curriculum help, teaching tools, support strategies, you'll come to a page that has all of these different options here. If you prefer teaching things like the Charlotte Mason methodology, then you can click on that. Executive functioning. We have 227 people following that one right now. How do I know that? Because it says it right here. And you can join those people too. These are all of the resources we have that have Charlotte Mason resources. So you can get into those, the organizations that we have associated. You can find out more about them. And then these are the groups that are associated with that. And also, if you want to start, you can click over from the feed to discussion. You can start a discussion on executive functioning skills, and everybody who's following it will get information about that. So you can build some good conversations right on there, and that is all with a free membership on our site. So definitely check it out. And if you are listening on the podcast and that all didn't seem to make sense because I just described in the video, just go to our website, click under resources, and on our homepage, there's curriculum help, teaching tools, support strategies. You'll find different topic areas. And under each of those topic areas, you can see resources, members, groups, organizations, as well as from the feed, you can go over to discussions and you can start your own discussion. So some pretty awesome stuff going on there. And so check that out. Now we have Christine coming back with us. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So yes, kids need their needs fulfilled,
Yes.
and it's good to make sure that happens. So I get it. All right. Well, we were talking a little bit about your curriculum and just teaching multiple students, which a lot of us we do when we homeschool. Although there's a growing trend of people just homeschooling one child and sending the rest to school. I think as people realize more and more how homeschooling can be adaptable, they're kind of taking baby steps into that realm, usually one
Mhm.
child at a time.
Yes.
But I think the question that's always in the back of their minds is, can we make this work for more than one, or can we bring everybody home? And so I love how you answered that question, and that yes, that is possible. And so, but so I was thinking of a question before, and so when I read your bio, you had talked about balancing just a relaxed homeschooling atmosphere and being a mom and all those things. And how have you seen that morph throughout your homeschooling journey and become more comfortable in just the things you're finding out as you kind of go along, one day at a time, one week at a time, one diagnosis at a time?
Yes.
and and not be too hard on yourself about what you didn't know also in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. So we, like I said, we moved a lot with my
Mhm.
husband being in the Marine Corps. And so that was something that was always drilled in us as military spouses, especially in the Marine Corps, was called Semper Gumby, which is always flexible. Um,
Mm.
and so,
Love
yeah,
that.
and you think of the actual green Gumby that was made of clay and flexible. Like that's where my mind always goes.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
but we literally have to be flexible
Yeah.
because a lot of people are like, well, we're moving. Like, how do we homeschool for a move? And I'm like, you don't. Like, you take time off and you school year
Right.
round. And so I think just having the different experiences of homeschooling in different states and having to move in
Mhm.
the middle of a school year and even deployments, or my husband going, like he lived in Japan for a time without
Wow.
us, and we were able to go visit him a
Mhm.
couple of times. So, like, extended vacation basically. And
Yeah.
so, like, our life was not normal. Um,
Mhm.
and so, it definitely, for us, like, it forced me
Mm.
to relax, and it forced
Yeah.
me to be flexible. And so, as hard as it was to have a not typical life, um,
Mhm.
I'm always so thankful for those experiences because it did force me to relax.
Hmm.
Because I'm an anxious person, and so like it doesn't come naturally for me to be like, no,
Right.
it's cool, it's good, like everything's fine.
Hmm.
Um, but when it comes to homeschooling, I am kind of the opposite in that. And so it is funny um, when I encounter friends who are still like very to the schedule. We can't do this because we're behind. And I'm like, what's behind? And so it's really like just taught me just to be flexible and to be relaxed. And I
Right.
also, just bringing back that enjoyment into it, that
Mhm.
I want to enjoy homeschooling my children. I'm going to be doing this for a very long time.
Right.
That we've been doing this for starting kindergarten. We've been doing this for 11 years, and my
Mhm.
youngest isn't even starting kindergarten for another year and a half now. So I have a lot more years ahead of me. And
Right.
so, like, I want it to be, that's a lot of time dedicating
Mhm.
my life to doing. I don't want to look back and be like, man, that was a miserable, 26
Right.
years or
No, you
whatever
don't.
it is after the, you know what I mean? And so, like, I want
Mhm.
to look back and I want to enjoy my everyday. I want to, be able to dive into these books with my kids um, and just really enjoy my time homeschooling them. So as much as I want them to
Mhm.
be happy, like I deserve to be happy too, like
Absolutely.
that we
Mhm.
all just have, yeah. So if I don't have that relaxed atmosphere to it, then, all of my anxiety and all of that's going to go on top of it. Like I can be anxious about other things. I certainly don't need to be anxious about what we're doing literally every day for years and years and years. So yeah, so just to
Yeah.
have that flexibility, and when
Mhm.
things come up, to say it's fine. My kids are learning. My oldest is going to basically like a technical high school. So he's learning a trade. He's learning to become an
Mhm.
electrician. Um,
Yeah.
and we absolutely only did it just for the electrician part. But it is fun because he is taking academic classes as a part of it as
Mhm.
well. And he's getting straight A's. And so it's fun to almost have that proof as a mom to be like, we did it. Like we were able to
Right.
teach
Yeah.
this for relaxed homeschool, and he's getting like he has an A in chemistry and algebra too, and these things that are
Mhm.
like big scary classes to me anyway. And
Yeah.
and he's doing just fine. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of just that proof. Um, and I still wish I could do the academic parts at home instead of having him do them there. But him getting all of his electrician stuff was much more important. And so I let him have that. Because how cool to like be able to graduate and be an electrician, because not every
Right.
state has programs like that. um,
Mhm.
but it is kind of just fun proof for me to be like
Yeah.
what we're doing, taking days off for fun or
Mhm.
vacation or going ice skating or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
it's fine to do that, and that all that learning is still going to happen. And like I said, not having those workbooks, the kids are still going to learn and all of that. And it's just really fun to have that like proof. And I know many other people
Yeah.
have that with kids who have graduated college and all of that they're like, yes,
Yes.
and they succeeded and did great, even though
Mhm.
we did have this more relaxed homeschool. So I'm finally getting to that stage where I'm able to see kind of the fruits of that and be like, we did
Yeah.
it. Like, yay, look at
Right.
us. So yeah,
Mhm.
so it's really fun to kind of see that other side, as he grows, that it worked
Absolutely.
and we did great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're teaching a lifestyle. And I don't think a lot of
Yeah.
people realize that is you're not just teaching academics within your house, you're teaching your kids how to handle difficult things, how to
Hmm.
incorporate rest time with work time. Those things you can talk about, but you're really teaching them as you show them and as
Right.
you live it. And do you want your children to be living anxious and irritated that, the lesson plan didn't get done, all of these things are mounting on us? Or do you want them to live with peace? Do you want them to realize that there's only so much stuff you can do in a day, that it's okay that if our schedule took us somewhere else, it's an adventure. And yes,
Yes.
I all three of mine have graduated, and I my oldest has graduated from college already, has a career, and my youngest is in college. And um, but their success had more to do with the atmosphere we built in our home than it
Right.
did the things that we taught.
Hmm.
And so I love that's what you're stressing, that's what you're focusing on, and you've got many years, like you said, to go, and
Many
that you have
years.
that perspective. Because a lot of people realize afterwards, oh man, I should have done this differently.
Yeah.
And so it's good to catch that and say, yeah, what has been done can be redeemed. But
Hmm.
when you realize that this is more than just teaching your kids how to read, do math, and learn their history and science,
Right.
it is so
Yeah.
much more.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
that's, I think, again, like I think that's why I love learning through books so much too,
Mm,
is because not only is it teaching them a good habit, but it really is teaching them how to learn for forever, for anything that
yeah.
they ever want to learn. Is they're already learning how to take that out of that literature,
Hmm.
instead of having a textbook feeding it to them. They have to find those things
Yeah.
through the different books, and how to just naturally learn. So they're becoming those lifelong learners, and that's what's really beautiful. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for families on similar journeys, discovering unique needs bit by bit, what advice would you have to offer as they kind of try to piece together their homeschooling path wherever they're at?
So you had mentioned earlier about how, I noticed at 18 months that something was up with my kiddo, and we did not get a
Right.
diagnosis until 12. Something that really struck my heart this summer. So when we went to that homeschooling special needs expo, I walked in there going almost kind of frustrated that I was just like, how do we not have a diagnosis yet? How am I supposed to wait still through all of this?
Yeah.
And so I left that weekend with a peace in my heart that just said, just wait.
Yeah.
And don't even do anything, because that was my thing, is like, what is my next step? What do I need to do as his mother
Right.
to advocate and to push and this and that and the other? Like, where do we need to go? Who do we need to talk to? Like, all of these things. And I just felt a peace that said, you need to stop, and you just need to let me take over. And so I said, okay,
Yeah.
God, like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to let you take over. And within a few months, we had a diagnosis. And it wasn't because of me pushing, and it wasn't because of me advocating. And there are certainly times where we need to do that.
Right.
But it was so great to just connect with other professionals who knew, because like all of that is still new to me, and learning about, executive functioning skills and all of these things. Like, that's all brand new to me. But there were people there that were able to feed me. And so I felt like I had those tools to say, okay, like, I can surrender this, because if I'm just using these tools, we don't need to know exactly what it is, because I still know what he needs help with.
Right.
So let's just start with those
Start there.
tools.
Yeah.
And just move forward with that. And so I'm doing that with my little guy now, that we're pretty sure is both an ADHD and autism diagnosis, that we will find out one of these days or years or months or whatever.
Right.
But same thing with him. While I'm waiting on our 2-year wait list to see a specialist, what am I waiting for? Like, I can still start and look up all these different things, or, go onto SPED Homeschooling and have that resource where I can ask a question on there and say, who else has dealt with this? What have you done to help with just tools that I can do as a mother, and I can do as his at-home therapist, like whatever you want to title me.
Right. Absolutely.
And so to just, as hard as it is, because it's so hard, as hard as it is
absolutely
to wait and have peace in the waiting, to really, really try to have that peace in the waiting, because the answers usually come when they are least expected, for one, and for two, during the perfect time. And that there is just so much that you can do in the meantime to just gather information and already start doing things differently in your home.
You don't need clearance from the higher ups in your school to, to start, change your curriculum, to change the atmosphere in a room. That, if there's something that's bothering your child, like a light bulb, then change it.
Right.
Need to ask. Yeah. So that's the wonderful things about homeschooling. Absolutely. Well, that's amazing advice. Yes. It's just do what you know and what you feel like needs to be done, and just go from there, and have peace, because their stories are so different. As your kids get older, they will diverge, and so you have to just go with what route God has planned for them, and be okay with that, and be okay that you didn't do a perfect job. You didn't know everything, because you won't, and you didn't teach them everything, because you can't. And and yet you've done what you were called to do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was to just love them each day and to teach them what you knew. So, and how you knew to do it. So
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah. So as we are wrapping up, I'd love for you to begin to talk about your curriculum and your website, rabbittrailshomeschool.com. And I know we'll put that in the show feed too. So if you don't want to have to copy that down, just know that the link will be in the description for the podcast, as well as the YouTube channel and all those things too. So yeah. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so Rabbit Trails Homeschool, like I've said, is a literature-based homeschool curriculum. We have all subjects except for math. I don't know if you've heard me stress that yet, that I don't like
Yes.
math. So we do not have math. There's lots of different places I can refer you to for math. That is not Rabbit Trails. We've talked about doing like a fun supplement where there was, books about addition, subtraction, and all that fun stuff, but we have not gone there yet, and it is not high on my list. Probably one day, but not today. So we do have language arts, history, science, geography. We do have a writing membership where you get a new writing lesson every single month, which is one of my favorite things. And it also has a topical Bible study that's new every month that goes along with it. And then we do have a Bible curriculum. I think that covers, and we do lots and lots of holidays too. We have a holiday bundle sale going on right now. So that's super fun to get a bunch of different holiday lessons. Excuse me, but it's all literature based. There's hands-on activities, there's copy work, and then there's just lots of opportunities for rabbit trails. So whether it is reading more books to go along with it, whether it is doing research, whether it is doing something else hands-on, YouTube videos, whatever it is, that we always give you a list of ideas to just go further down that rabbit trail, so that you can go as deep as your kids want to go, or as shallow as your kids want to go, and just making it your own, so that so that you can call the shots as the parent, and not necessarily having us call the shots as the curriculum writers. So
yeah, that's awesome. I know a lot of our parents are like, what if my child gets stuck here? What do I do? And so to be able to have those options and those ideas already thought up ahead of time is a huge advantage.
For sure.
Have on your side.
And I always say, like, I don't have a degree in curriculum writing. Like, I am just a mom who was inspired to write this. So anyone could do this, but we've done the work for you and spent all of the time finding all of those things so that you don't have to go digging for it. Because I do know several moms that they basically take this framework and they do it. And I'm like, you know what? More power to you. Where I'm like, please save me time, And so like my friend who writes history, thank you that I don't have to write this, and I can just take her lesson and just do it. You know what I mean? And so, because I get that benefit by having those few ladies that help me, that I take their lesson and I just do it. I don't have to write it, And so, so I'm right along with everyone who purchases it, that I'm taking it, and we are going down those rabbit trails, and we are using the parts that work for us and not using the parts that don't work for us, and just enjoying it.
Yes. And that's the key, is to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it. And you've got to, like you said, it's a long time. I've homeschooled for 19 years. That's a large chunk of my life.
Yes, exactly.
And so yes, you've got to figure out a way to bring joy into your house, if that is your calling. And you will, if you settle into that, and you really settle into that piece, that that's your calling, that's where you're at. And instead of trying to figure out how to get your own plan figured out around God's plan and call for your life, that makes it worse. So well, thank you so much, Christine. This has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate all you've had to share, and sharing your story is most important, because I think a lot of parents, they feel like they're alone, or that they're the only one that doesn't know everything that they need to know. And that they don't, just knowing that it's okay to not know everything, and
Right.
that things will still work out, and every day can be joyful, and it can be filled with learning and the love of learning, where you're at. So
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for having me. I was really, really excited and looking forward to talking with you today. So
Yeah, this was great. And make sure to visit Christine's website. It's rabbittrailshomeschool.com. And just thank you for, pouring into other families, not just keeping that to yourself. I'm sure there's lots and lots of families out there that are benefiting from your obedience to do that and share that.
well, thank you.
So,
Yeah. It's a blessing to, just to see the other families being able to enjoy it and use it and benefit from it. So
yeah, very cool. Well, next week on the show, we are going to have a conversation about unlocking literacy, empowering kids with disabilities to read. And so my expert that I'll have on has some really good pointers. If you feel like your child is even below reading level ever, she has ways to help you to build their literacy skills. So you'll want to join me for that conversation next week. So thanks again, Christine. And thank you all for joining us here on Empowering Homeschool Conversations. We'll see you next time. Take care and God bless. Bye, everybody.
This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com.